Yes. Good morning, all. Yes. So today we are going to discuss on understanding sedition and free speech in news. So this is news because four eminent persons in the month of November were being FIR has been filed on those names like Maniratnam, the famous personalities Ramachandra Guha. So those people were being named under this particular FIR because of criticizing the government for on the issues of cow slaughtering and etc. So on this particular issue, it was in the news, and 2 days back also it was in the news with respect to sedition. Why? Because the demand for removal of sedition is increasing day on day. The demand, the demand for removal of sedition is increasing day on day. One of that particular demand is there should be a advocate. There should be a advocation of free speech. It should not be curtailed by the laws such as sedition is a popular demand. So on this particular front, I am going to discuss understanding the sedition and free speech in news. The recent order of lower court in Bihar directing the filing of an FIR against 49 eminent persons who signed an open letter to the Prime Minister expressing concerns over mob lynching in shocking, disappointing, and completely disregarded the true meaning of the law. The shocking, disappointing, and completely disregarded the true meaning of the law. So, on this particular note, we are going to discuss this particular topic. Free speech is one of the most significant principles of democracy. Yes, a country cannot be called as democracy if there is no speech. For example, China. The China they tell that we are communist but we are democratic in nature. But those countries cannot be called as democratic in nature. Why? Because they are controlled by the state. So the speech should be free, the expression should be free. There should not be any curtailment of rights. If there is curtailment of speech, if there is curtailment of expression, then what is the matter of having a democracy? Why? Because democracy itself, the advocate of free wish and free will. So free speech is one of the most significant principles of democracy. The purpose of this freedom The purpose of this freedom is to allow an individual to attain self-fulfillment, assist in discovery of truth, strengthen the capacity of a person to take decisions, and facilitate a balance between stability and social change. So, free speech is one of the most significant principles of democracy. The purpose of this freedom is to allow an individual to attain self-fulfillment. That means self-fulfillment. This is the view I had. This is a opinion I had. So when a person shares his opinion, that means he's free. He's reaching his highest attainment, self-attainment. and is discovering the truth in the process of giving the opinions, in the process of giving the views. He is discovering himself. Assist in discovery of truth, strengthen the capacity of a person to take decisions, and facilitate a balance between stability and social change. Universal Declaration of Human Rights 1948 in its preamble and Article 49 declared freedom of speech as a basic fundamental right. This freedom is termed as an essence of free society. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights 1948 in its preamble and Article 14 declared freedom of speech as a basic fundamental right. This freedom is termed as an essence of free society. This freedom is termed as an essence of free society. So, Universal Declaration of Human Rights 1948 in its preamble and Article 19 declared freedom of speech as a basic fundamental. It's a basic fundamental right. Restrictions on free speech. There is a restriction on free speech. Article 19, Clause 1, Clause A of the Constitution of India guarantees freedom of speech and expression to all citizens. However, this freedom is subject to certain restrictions, namely, interests of the sovereignty and integrity of India, the security of the state, friendly relations with foreign states, public order, decency or morality, or in relation to contempt of court, defamation or incitement of an offence. Sedition is used for restriction on free speech. So there is a need for sedition is used for restriction on free speech. So there is a restriction on free speech by saying the word called as sedition. There is a total restriction on free speech. There is total restriction on expression, mentioning that there is a need to protect the sovereignty and integrity of the nation. On the interests of sovereignty and integrity of the nation, security of the nation, we are going to control the free speech and expression. So there are some clauses where the sedition is used for security of the state, friendly relations with the foreign state, public order, decency or morality, relation to contempt of court, defamation or incitement to an offense. On this particular basis, sedition can be applied, not for criticizing the government. But nowadays, what is happening means the criticism on the government is also taken as sedition. Criticism on government is also taken as sedition. Article 19, Clause 1, Clause A of the Constitution of India guarantees freedom of speech and expression to all citizens. However, this freedom is subjected to certain restrictions, namely interests of the sovereignty and integrity of India, the security of the state, friendly relations with foreign states, public order, decency or morality, or in relation to contempt of court, defamation or incitement to an offence. Sedition is used for restriction on free speech. So there is a conclusion. We had a conclusion for it as well. There is a conclusion. There is a need to differentiate between strong criticism of the government and incitement to violence. There is a need for proper understanding. There is a need for proper knowledge that what is incitement of violence and what is a strong criticism of the government. How we can criticize the government and how we can incite the violence. That they need to understand properly. Mere criticism of the government or its policy should not amount to sedition. Mere criticism of the government or its policy should not amount to sedition. Such a dissent or criticism must be accompanied by incitement to violence or intention or tendency to create public disorder or cause disturbance of public peace, which is against the interests of sovereignty and integrity of India or security of the state for invoking charges under sedition. Such dissent or criticism must be accompanied by incitement to violence or intention or in tendency to create public order or cause disturbance of public. So, what is this dissent? Or criticism must be accompanied by incitement to violence or intention to tendency to create public disorder or cause disturbance. If that is there with the criticism, if that is there with the criticism, then it leads to sedition, which is against the interests of the sovereignty and integrity of India for invoking charges under sedition. Sedition should not be used by the government against such people voicing their opinion even against the functioning of the government. Time has come to debate on the use of sedition in modern times as this incorporation was based on colonial purposes. So sedition should not be used by the government against such people voicing their opinion even against the functioning of the government. Time has come to debate on the use of sedition in modern times as its incorporation was based on colonial purposes. So this particular sedition was added. This particular sedition was added to the list of the laws in British time in order to control the criticism against the British government. Hence, this was used as an apt, or for them, it was used for the apt for British India to have a British law of sedition, not for an independent India, for the post-independent India, but still in post-independent India, respective governments are continuing the sedition. Why? Because they don't want the criticism of the government. They don't want to hear the criticism of the government. They don't want to come out the lambit of the government. It's about sedition. So there are issues every time, every month there is some issue on sedition. So that is the reason I discussed about sedition now. Yes. So revising Indian Penal Code. The next topic is revising Indian Penal Code. Very, very important. So what happened, this Indian Penal Code, the Indian Penal Code was been the Indian Penal Code was been made by British India for their purpose, for their objectives, for their fulfillment of the needs. So it was with respect to their views, their opinion, their purpose, their objective, etc. etc. So in today's India also the same penal code of British India, like sedition, now only we discuss. Like sedition, it is continuing, continuing, continuing. So there is a popular demand, there is a demand from the people of this world, from the people of India, that why this Indian Penal Code, why this particular Indian Penal Code, uh, the law, the code which is made by the British India, why we are continuing still. So that is where the revision of the Indian Penal Code is at demand. And the government also in before 2019 election and before 2014 election, they told that we are interested in revising and revamping total Indian Penal Code. And they want to come out of all the pre-independent laws, that means British Indian laws. The Narendra Modi government had an ambition and an objective of revamp all the pre-independent laws of British India. So in this particular context, there is a demand for revising the Indian Penal Code. The government aims to revamp Indian Penal Code, which was drafted by the British. Union Home Minister has recently asked Bureau of Police Research and Development to work on a proposal to amend various sections of the IPC and the Code of Criminal Procedure Code after seeking suggestions from people across the country. The government aims to revamp Indian Penal Code, which was drafted by the British. Union Home Minister has recently asked the Bureau of Police Research and Development to work on a proposal to amend various sections of the IPC and the Code of Criminal Procedure after seeking suggestions from people across the country. So they want to amend various sections of the IPC and Code of Criminal Procedure. Code of Criminal Procedure. So their ambition, the government of India is planning to come out with the so need for reform in criminal justice system, that is Code of Criminal Procedure. The purpose of reform must be to transform the approach towards the criminal justice by reclassification of offence to recognize and classify crimes done in the present with an eye on the future. So in doing such reform, several points must be taken into consideration. These are identification of rights of victims of crime. So there are some rights of the victims of the crime also. So who are the victims who are been suffering because of the crime? So there is a need to provide some rights to those people. That rights need to be identified of the victims. In this, trust in reform must be given to introducing victims and witness protection scheme. Yes, in this trust in reform must be given introducing victim and witness protection scheme, use of victim impact statements, advent of victim advocacy, increase the victim participation in criminal trials, enhance the access of victims to compensation, and increase the emphasis on victims in the criminal justice system. So in this Trust in reform must be given to introducing victim and witness protection scheme. Yes, there is need for witness protection scheme. No, if not, the people are taking revenge on the witness. How dare you to give witness against me? I'm not going to leave you. Such a sort of tendency is there among the people who are committing the crime. If they come out from the jail after having sufficient punishment, they are taking revenge on the witness. Several incidences are there. Several incidences are there. So there is a need to protect the victim as well as the witness. Recently, under the Badhan case, the woman who complained against the uh, accused after coming out from the jail through bail, he attacked her. So such sort of incidences we are repeating, we are watching, we are seeing. Hence, there is a need to control such things. So there is a need for victim protection scheme as well as witness protection scheme. Use of victim impact statements, advent of victim advocacy, increase the victim participation in criminal trials, enhance the access of victims to compensation, and increased emphasis on victims in the criminal justice system. So victim center should be there. Why? Because he's the person who is suffering, not we all are. Not now. Now, for example, there is a issues happen like Nirbhaya case. Right now, there is a issue of Disha case in Hyderabad. So this all Priyanka Reddy case, Disha case, everyone are talking about the victim and the victim family. Then what about the protection to the victim family? How we are going to give them freedom to the victim family? Everyone is concentrated around the victim and victim family. So that's not that need of focus need to be made. And the media people, in order to advertise themselves, they are making this. They are focusing more on the victim's family. Remolding old offences. Remolding old offences. There is not only need to remold offences drafted to suit British colonialism, but also rework on classification of offences under specific chapters. So there is not only need to remold offences drafted to suit, so which been suitable for British colonialism. Such sort of offences need to be remolded and also need to be reworked and classification of offences under specific chapters. Offences such as criminal conspiracy, sedition, offences against coin and stamps, etc., needs to be abolished or replaced. Even the chapters on offences against public servants, contempt of authority, public tranquility, and trespass can be redefined and narrowed. So, remolding of old offences. There is not only need to remold offences drafted to suit British colonialism, but also to rework on classification of offence under specific chapters. For example, nowadays if the online transactions are increasing, economic transactions are increasing. So with economic transactions, economic offences are increasing with respect to use of information communication technology. So this particular use of information communication technology need to be using the information communication technology need to be reduced because it's loss of the money, it's loss of cheating. So this particular act, this particular sort of mistakes are being decided as civil cases, but now there is a need to reclassify it as a criminal cases. Why? Because new crimes are coming into existence because of information communication technology. Yes or no? ATM card theft, information from ATM card theft is very common, OTP theft is very common. So, such a sort of thieves, economic offences should be categorized under criminal offences but not civil offences because it's a cheating. 420, section 420 is a criminal offence. So, particularly, it should be mentioned. A committee was been constituted to study the criminal justice system, how to reform and revise the criminal justice system, which is called as Malimuth Committee. Malimuth Committee. New offences like those suggested by the Malimuth on criminal justice reforms can be introduced. New offences like those suggested by Malimuth on criminal justice reforms can be introduced. Malimuth Committee on Malimuth Committee on reforming criminal justice system. Related information, recommendations by Malimat. This is very, very important. Malimat committee, what it recommended. Inquisitorial system. The committee recommended adopting some of the important features of inquisitorial system into our adversarial system, such as involvement of court in investigation process, so as to search for truth, to assign a proactive role to the judges, to give directions to the investigating officers and to prosecution agencies in the matter of investigation. However, the committee on balance felt that a fair trial and a particular fairness to the accused are better protected in the adversarial system. So there is a demand for inquisitorial system whereby the justice judiciary will be involving in investigation process. So they don't just give the judgments, they also participate in the criminal justice system. The committee recommended adopting some of the important features of inquisitorial system into our adversarial system, such as involvement of court in investigation process, so as to search for truth, to assign a proactive role to the judges, to give directions to the investigating officers and prosecution agencies in matters of investigation. However, the committee on balance felt that a fair trial and a particular fairness to the accused are better protected in the adversarial system. So adversarial system will be helping the accused. Why? Because he's accused, not convicted. Accused. The truth has been not out whether he committed the crime or not. So accused sometimes, not sometimes, most of the times accused are innocents. So accused also need to be protected. It's not about just a criminal justice. It's about protection of the accused also. Uh, maybe orchestrated artificially. He might be imbibed into it. It might be a created thing. So accused also need to be protected. The accused protection can be guaranteed by adversarial system. Right against self-incrimination. Custodial interrogation, which means arrest solely for the purpose of interrogation inherently. So custodian interrogation, which means arrest solely for the purpose of interrogation, inherently, invariably, and unavoidably violates fundamental right against self-incrimination and the right to silence. So when self-incrimination, so where sometimes in the name of custodial interrogation, in the name of getting the truth, there will be some custodial interrogation will be there. Arrest solely for the purpose of interrogation inherently, invariably, constantly, and unavoidably violates fundamental right against self-incrimination and the right to silence. That means I did not did the mistake, I did not did the mistake, and I did not did the mistake. Means people are not listening. Why? Because there is a constitutional thing that there is no more self-incrimination. But on the name of finding the truth, on the name of finding the truth, the accused will be brought into the custody and there will be a custodial interrogation whereby violence will be incited onto the accused. In such particular times, because to come out of the violence from beating from the police, they sometimes they voluntarily, if they did not do the mistake also, they will be obligating that yes, I did the mistake in order to come out of the violence. Such are situations very, very common in tribal areas of left-wing extremism, where the innocent tribal people will be tortured by the police in order to confess that they have done the mistake. But in reality, they are the people did not, who will not do the mistake. So there is some sort of protection for this particular custodial interrogation. Custodial interrogation, which means arrest solely for the purpose of interrogation, inherently, invariably, and unavoidably violates fundamental right against self-incrimination and the right to silence. On this note, let us understand about right against self-incrimination. Understanding right against self-incrimination. What does this? Article 20, Clause 3. No person accused of any offence shall be compelled to be a witness against himself. No person can tell against himself that, sir, I did not did the mistake. And if you tell that I did not did the mistake, the court is not going to take it as an evidence. So no person accused of an offence shall be compelled to be a witness against himself. So no person accused of an offence shall be compelled to be a witness against himself. That is Article 20 clause. Section 161 clause 2 of Code of Criminal Procedure. The Code of Criminal Procedure. implements the constitutional right against self-incrimination. Every person who the police is authorized to examine orally is bound to answer truly all questions relating to such case, but to him by the police officer legally authorized to examine in other than questions the answers to which would have a tendency to expose him to a criminal charge or to penalty or forfeiture. So this is the thing. Every person who the police is authorized to examine orally is bound to answer truly all questions related to such case put to him by the police officer legally authorized to examine. Other than questions, the answers to which would have tendency to expose him to a criminal charge or to a penalty or forfeiture. So the police have the right to ask the questions. Yes, the police have the right to ask the questions, but it should not imbibe him to tell that forcefully and against the truth that he has been committed the mistake. There should not be any force. Against the force, no one should tell that he is indulged in a crime without indulging in reality. That is right against self-incrimination. Right against self-incrimination as explained by Supreme Court. A person accused of an offence means a person against whom a personal accusation relating to the commission of an offence has been charged, which may result in prosecution. Formal accusation in India can be brought by lodging an FIR or a formal complaint to a competent authority against a particular individual accusing him for the commission of the crime. So who is here? Here he accuses a person whom a formal acquisition relating to the commission of an offence has been charged, which may result in prosecution. Formal acquisition in India can be brought by launching of an FIR or a formal complaint to a competent authority against the particular individual accusing him for the commission of the crime. Self-incrimination means that police cannot compel the accused to give evidence against himself. In the case of Nandini Satpathy versus PL Dhani, the Supreme Court ruled that the extent of prohibition of article goes back to the stage of police interrogation after filing of interrogation. So after filing of FIR, there should not be any. That means he himself, if he tells that yes, I committed the crime, then the police should not take it as an evidence. Why? Because it might be because of the police interrogation, it might be because of the pressure, or it might be because of a psychological reason. So that particular self-incrimination will not be taken as the evidence. समझ में आया? सबको क्लियर है ना अब तो? क्या है? And what is the need for Article 20 Clause 3? Combining the understanding of Article 20 Clause 3 and Sections 161 Clause 2, it means that a person has the right to remain silent to avoid incriminating himself or herself. In Selvi versus Karnataka, Chief Justice of India explained that the underlying rationale of the right against self-incrimination broadly corresponds with two objectives. One is ensuring reliability of the statements made by an accused and ensuring that the statements are made voluntarily by the accused and not compelled by any other. So in this particular context, there will be compelling, forceful compelling. There will be force will be used by the force will be used by this particular people, the uh, police interrogation, the interrogation department, in order to take the truth, or in order to fix some people, in order to close the file. In order to close the file, sometimes the police itself fix the issues. So in order to stop such sort of evidences, there is a question for self-incrimination, that self-evidence is not appropriate in circumstances. There is a need for evidence from the outside. In Nandini Satpathy was with Justice V.R. Krishna Iyer held that Article is a human article which guarantees dignity and integrity to an individual and clothes him with the right of silence. If he is being silenced, it means he is not committing the mistake. So there should not be any custodial interrogation also in order to get the truth out. This is about self-incrimination, the issue of self-incrimination, right against self-incrimination explained by Supreme Court. So this is about self-incrimination. Custodial interrogation, which means arrest solely for the purpose of interrogation, inherently, invariably, and unavoidably violates fundamental right against self-incrimination and the right to silence. We are forcing them to tell the truth. If it is not the truth, we are trying to create a truth. On this note, let us understand about right against yes. Article 20 clause 3, no person accused of any offence shall be compelled to be witness against himself. Whereas section 61, 161 clause 2 tells that implements the constitutional right against self-incrimination. Every person who the police is authorized to examine orally is bound to answer truly all questions related to such case put to him by the police officer legally. Authorized to examine other than the questions, the answers to which would have a tendency to expose him to a criminal charge or to penalty or forfeiture. Right against self-incrimination as explained. So no one can be self-incriminated. A person accused of an offence means a person against whom a personal acquisition has been made in the FIR. Self-incrimination means that police cannot compel the accused to give evidence against himself. In the case of Nandini, rule the extent of prohibition of Article 2 goes back to the stage of police interrogation after filing of. So it is at the which level means at the level of police interrogation. Combine the understanding of this, both the underlying rationale of the right against self-incrimination broadly corresponds with two objectives: ensuring reliability of the statements made by an accused and ensuring that statements are made voluntarily by the accused and not compelled by an authority. If they are taken into the custody, that is the duty of the judiciary. It is the duty of the judiciary to find. It is the duty of the judiciary to find the truth of the case. That whether the statements given by the accused is reliable or not, whether the statements given by the accused are voluntarily or compelled, that need to be corrected. So just explain that the underlying rationale of the right against self-incrimination broadly corresponds with two objectives. That is about self-incrimination. मेंस पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू कंपलसरी क्वेश्चन है, ये तो आ ही चाहिए, आता ही कंपलसरी. Draft Model Tenancy Act. There is an issue. Draft Model Tenancy Act. Draft Model Tenancy Act means in order to protect the interests of the tenants, in order to protect the interests of the tenants who are being on rent at house in urban areas, there are some rights for the tenants. The rights need to be protected. So that particular rights of the tenants now it is going to become a law. So tenancy means the people who are staying on rent on others' house is tenants. For example, in Delhi, you take the example of our own people, civil services preparation, aspirants, old Rajendra Nagar, Mukherjee Nagar, our own students will be staying in rooms in pathetic situations. They will take the advance and they will not pay the advance. I am one of the victim in 2010 when I went for my interview. When I stayed for 1 month, they asked me one month of advance, and when I come out after 1 month, they won't pay. They will be creating ruckus for the ask when I ask for advance. In Hyderabad, Ashok Nagar area is famous for civil services preparation. Most of the students will be civil service aspirants. They face lot of problem to get a house. If they get a house, the advances, the rents will be skyrocketing. So there is a need to regulate them. There is a need to how we regulated the real estate sector. Now there is a need to regulate this particular tenancy. Tenants also, we need to protect the rights of the tenants. For in order to protect the rights of the tenants, there is need for Model Tenancy Act. So who is responsible for this Model Tenancy Act is Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs has released the draft Model Tenancy Act 2019, which aims to regulate rental housing by creating rent authorities, rent courts, and rent tribunals. Rent authorities will be there, rent tribunals will be there, and rent courts will be there. Rent authorities, rent courts, and rent tribunals. Yes, Chandra, are you understanding the concept? Yes, very good. So draft Model Tenancy Act means who is taking care of prelims point of view? Who is taking care of this Model Tenancy Act means Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs has released the draft Model Tenancy Act 2019, which aims to regulate rental house by creating rent authorities, rent courts, and rent tribunals. Purpose of the Act. With the commitment to provide housing for all by 2022, the Act envisages to balance the interests and rights of both the owner and tenant and to create an accountable and transparent ecosystem for renting the premises in disciplined and efficient manner. With a commitment to provide housing for all by 2022, the Act envisages to balance the interests and rights of both the owner and tenant and to create an accountable and a transparent ecosystem for renting the premises in disciplined and efficient manner. It will enable creation of adequate rental housing stock for various income segments of society, including migrants, formal and informal sector workers, professionals, students, etc. And increase access to quality rented accommodation, enable gradual formalization of rental housing market. So it will enable creation of adequate rental housing stock for various income segments of society, including migrants, formal and informal sector workers, professionals, students, etc. And increase access to quality rented accommodation, enable gradual formalization of rental housing market. So this is the one. It will enable the creation of adequate rental housing stock for various income segments of society, including migrants, formal and informal sector workers, professionals, students, etc., and increase access to quality and rented accommodation, enable gradual formalization of rental housing market. So there is a need for formalization of rental housing market. Hence, there is a need for model tenancy. It will help overall balance the legal framework vis-a-vis rental housing across the country. It also expected to give a fillip to private participation in rental housing for addressing the huge housing storage across the country. It also lays down the obligations of tenants and landlords. It will help overhaul the legal framework vis-a-vis rental housing across the country. It is also expected to give a fillip to private participation in rental housing for addressing the huge housing shortage across the country. It also lays down obligations of tenants and landlords. The draft Model Tenancy Act will also promote growth of rental housing and investment in the sector and promote entrepreneurial opportunities and an innovative mechanism of sharing of space. This Model Tenancy Act will be applicable prospectively and will not affect the existing tenancies. Will not affect the existing tenancies. An innovative mechanism of sharing of space, this Model Tenancy Act will be applicable prospectively and will not affect the existing tenancies. Yes. That means from today onwards it will be there. It will not be retrospective. It will be prospective. Will promote growth of rental housing and investment in the sector and promote entrepreneurial opportunities and innovative mechanism of sharing of space. So this is about Model Tenancy Act. Mainly they are going to create what? Rental authority, rental court and rental tribunals. Yes. मेंस में आ जाएगा ये तो 2020 मेंस में तो आ जाएगा रिमेंबर माय वर्ड आई टोल्ड दैट मॉडल टेनेंसी एक्ट प्रोविजंस ये तो प्रोविजंस है और उसका क्रिटिसिज्म क्या है वो सब आएगा एग्जाम में ठीक है सुप्रीम कोर्ट recalls verdict diluting SC/ST atrocities law anti-atrocities law on March 20, 2018 judgment by Justice A.K. Goyal diluted the SC/ST Act of 1989 to grant anticipatory bail to accused persons and directed the police should conduct a preliminary inquiry on whether complaint under 1918 law is frivolous or motivated before registering a case. Recently, the Supreme Court has recalled its March 20, 2018 verdict, whereby discussing the SC/ST prevention of continuing the same SC/ST Act. Act and controversy associated with what is SC/ST? The Scheduled Caste and Tribes Prevention of Atrocities Act 1989 is an act of Parliament of India enacted to prevent atrocities against SCs and STs. So 1989 Act SC/ST against prevention of atrocities against SCs and STs. Prevention of atrocities against SCs and ST, a law has been made which is made in the year 1989, which is very rigid and stringent in order to protect the human rights of SCs and STs, in order to protect the rights of SCs and STs. But recently on March 20, 2018, a judgment was been out which is given by AK Goel, which tells that there will be an anticipatory bail and there will be a preliminary inquiry before filing an FIR. So now they had been very good. Regarding rent is a state subject. That's why it's called as model. Of course, okay. I need to tell this. That's why it is called as model. Model बोले तो क्या? This is the best law. For example, APMC is there. APMC is there. Agriculture Produce Market Committees. This is also a model law. Very, very famous. APMC Act. This APMC Act is called as model. Similarly, Tenancy Act is called as model. This has been legislated and this is in still draft situation only. Model means what? The subjects which are there in the state list, the central government will give the model. So you state government, you make a law in your state which I am giving on my lines. So this I am making at central level, but it will not be applicable. Why? Because it's a state subject. So you people, you have to make similar law at your state. That's why it is called as model. So this is a draft, a proper model. On this model, you have to make a law. That's why it's called as yes, Chandra, what you told is 100% correct. So this is model. Model means what? The central government will be giving model to the state governments. You make law on these lines. समझ में आया चंद्रा? So prevention of SC/ST atrocities 1989. A judgment was been out in March 2018. Now its aim is to prevent commission of offences of atrocities against STs and STs, to provide for special courts for the trial of such offences, to provide relief and rehabilitation of the victims of such as. This is the main ambition of SC and ST Act. One is to prevent the commission of offences of atrocities against SC and ST, to provide for special courts for the trial of such offences, to provide relief and rehabilitation of the victims of such offences. Why Supreme Court had given a probe first rule? In March, the Supreme Court in Subhash Kashinath Mahajan versus State of Maharashtra reviewed SC/ST to find that SC/ST is being misused. Checks are needed to prevent such misuse. The Act has become a tool to persecute innocents and public servants for political and personal gains. Therefore, SC provided the following amendments in the Act. What are those? A preliminary inquiry should be conducted before the FIR was registered to check if the case fell within the ambit of the Act and whether it was frivolous or motivated. A person can be released on anticipatory bail unless a prima facie case of crimes or atrocities is made out of. So these are the major differences which is about. Apart from it, when they are going to get arrested, there is a need for written document need to be given by the senior superintendent of police, and if it is a public servant, that need to be given by the appointing authority. The information should go for appointing authority. And the conclusion is government should take steps both to empower the vulnerable sections of the society as well as to avoid the misuse of law, so as to genuine complaints can get addressed properly. So as genuine complaints has to get addressed properly. Okay? So this is about CST's Atrocities Act, which was in news. Okay, Chandra? Yes, Anshu Verma, good morning. Any doubts, Anshu Verma? Yes. The next topic is GS Mains 2. You know that in GS Mains, three courses, three modules are there. One module is polity, other module is governance, and the other module is international relations. So in this particular international relations, I am going to discuss of GS Mains 2. Polity, governance, and international relations. Substance across Arabian Sea. What is substance? Substance across Arabian Sea, mainly drugs. Drugs are called as substance. The broad parameters of India's Middle East policy were largely in place when Modi was elected in 2014. In the current context, India Look West policy, which is now renamed as Link West policy. Look West policy has been made now Link West policy, has three main axes: Israel, Iran, and Arab Gulf countries. So not we are not looking at European countries. We are not looking for United States of America. We are looking for Israel. We are looking for Iran. We are looking for Gulf countries. So it's not just Look West policy, it's about Link West policy. Link West policy. It's not just look west policy, it's a link west policy. So we are changing from look to link, mainly with three countries. Prelims में आएगा. The government of India had changed its stand from look west policy to link west policy with three countries. Three countries on the agenda. Who are that three countries? Means it is Israel, it is Iran, and it is Gulf countries. These are the three countries who are linked to it. Substance across Arabian Sea. Israel and Iran. In the case of Israel, India's relationship had historically been cool. During the Cold War, India had stood publicly with the Arab states and the Palestinian nationalist struggle. In the case of Israel, India's relationship had historically been cool. During the Cold War, India had stood publicly with the Arab states and India had stood publicly with the Arab states and Palestinian nationalist struggle. Domestic considerations. Domestic considerations were important here. They included Arab states' support for their management of the Muslim majority Jammu and Kashmir and efforts to placate its sizable Muslim minority. So in the Cold War times, India supported the Palestinian, the Arab states. Still, the Israel maintained its cool relationship with India. That is the beauty of the Israel. So in Israel versus Iran with India, in the Cold War era, India supported the Palestinian country because India, in order to get support from the Muslim minorities and Jammu and Kashmir, we supported the. Over time, both of these considerations became less relevant. Growing Arab-Israel dialogue during 1990s and the Oslo peace process between Israel and the Palestinian diminished that conflict centrality in the region and among Indian Muslims. In addition, India had to contend with increasingly critical resolutions against India's rule of Jammu and Kashmir from the Organization of Islamic, which included a number of Muslim Arab states. So this is the India and Israel. Whereas Iran के बारे में आए तो as with Israel, India's relation with Iran contain both a national security and an economic dimension. National security, why? Because the Iran is bordering with Pakistan and Afghanistan. So anything happens in Afghanistan, anything happens in Pakistan, will have a dual link between the Iran and India. Hence, we are in national security also. We are bothered from in Iran perspectives. And economic dimensions, they are oil. Iran also produces oil, so we want oil. The oil is given by the Iran. Indian policymakers see relations with Iran not only as a key energy supplier but as a way to contribute to enhancing India's security in Central and South Asia by containing India's main rival, Pakistan. If I want to, that's why we had what Gwadar. Gwadar port has been constructed in Iran by India so that we can have a direct link with Pakistan. So such type of issues are happening whereby the Iran is promoting and helping India with respect to security issues. Hence, we had a very good link with Iran. For Iran and India alike, the path for constraining Pakistan lies through Afghanistan, which has become a base for militant groups whose threats transcend the country's border. So, how India is facing a threat from Pakistan and Afghanistan, similarly, Iran is also facing the problem from Afghanistan and Pakistan. Why? Because Afghanistan and Pakistan are Sunni people, whereas Iran people are Shia people. Hence, there is a conflict. Hence, there is continual threat to Iran. India and Iran first agreed to cooperate on the development of trade and transport links through Central Asia and channel them towards Iran's Chabar port. Yes, sorry, Chabar port, not Gwadar port. Gwadar port is in Pakistan and Chabar port is in Afghanistan. Is in Iran. Chabar port, India constructed the Chabar port. India constructed the Chabar port in Iran. Chabar port, yes. India and Iran have first agreed to cooperate on the development of trade and transport links through Central Asia and channel them towards Iran's Chabar port on the Indian Ocean in 2003. The development of Chabar port and its associated infrastructure is beneficial for India in two ways. One is that it will make it easier to access oil imports from Iran. Another is that it may balance energy trade and development projects in Central Asia and the Middle Asia, which are associated with Belt and Road Initiative. With Belt and its Road Initiative. So the middle which are associated with this Belt and Road Initiative. Another is that it may balance Chinese trade and development projects in Central Asia and the Middle East Asia and which are associated with Belt and how the China is curtailing or constraining India by its Belt and Road Initiative. India also can counter the China by using this particular Chabar port. Apart from it, we had a pipeline called as IPA under consideration. Iran, Pakistan, and India. There is an demand for there is a proposal for construction of a direct pipeline from Iran to India through Pakistan. But the problem is with Pakistan. Hence, this particular project is not been ready. It is still under proposal. Why? Because Pakistan is making issue out of it. Then what is the way forward? What is the way forward? The setting up of bilateral strategic partnership council to be co-chaired by the Indian Prime Minister and the Saudi Crown Prince is defining development. So we had bilateral strategy. Direct we have a bilateral strategic partnership council to be co-chaired by the Indian Prime Minister and Saudi Crown Prince. Both together they are setting up a bilateral strategic partnership council. The two people are coming together to establish a bilateral strategic partnership. Bilateral strategic means on long run, defense related, security related, economy related. In all these particular fronts, the government of India and the Saudi kingdom coming together in order to have a very good relationship, which is called as bilateral strategic partnership council. In prelims, they will ask that recently India had signed a bilateral strategic partnership council with which country? Bilateral strategic partnership council with which country? It is none other than Saudi Arabia. The Strategic Partnership Council would be a permanent bilateral platform with two verticals jointly exercised serviced by the two foreign and trade industry ministries. Among the potential areas for next stage of bilateral cooperation could be a greater bilateral synergy in Indian infrastructure, agriculture, startup, skilling and IT. Shifting some labor-intensive establishments from Saudi Arabia to India would serve. Among the potential areas for next stage of bilateral cooperation would be greater bilateral synergy in Indian infrastructure, agriculture startups, skilling and IT, shifting some labor-intensive establishments from Saudi Arabia to India would serve the respective national priorities by reducing the kingdom's expatriate population and boosting Make in India. So we are help. There is a need for helping. Apart from it, the most important is Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia supported India in abrogation Article 370. They know that if they support Article 370, they are going against the will of the Pakistan. But still, Saudi Arabia supported abrogation of Article 70, telling that it is the internal matter of India. Among the potential areas for next stage of bilateral cooperation would be greater bilateral synergy in Indian infrastructure, agriculture, startup, skilling, and IT. Shifting some labor-intensive establishments from Saudi Arabia to India. Why? Because labor is present in India. So if the labor-intensive industries are present in Saudi Arabia, what will happen? The expenditure will increase. Why? Because they need to provide the social security measures for the labor. Would serve the respective national priorities by reducing the kingdom's expatriate population and boosting Make in India. So the kingdom's expatriate who are coming from outer places, there will be protected. This is about this. So this is about the relationship. Yes. So what are all topics we discussed? What are all topics we discussed? Just I will have a quick revision. Yes, we will have a quick revision. अंडरस्टैंडिंग सेडिशन से स्टार्ट हुआ है CS2 के टॉपिक्स गवर्नेंस के टॉपिक में इस yes we discussed about sedition and free speech उसके बाद restrictions on free speech universal declaration of human rights 1948 Article 19 declares freedom of speech as a basic fundamental right. दोनों जगह पर है Universal Declaration of Human Rights 1948 and Article 19 declares freedom of speech. So there is a need to protect the freedom of speech. There should not be any restriction on freedom of speech. So hence, but sedition is restricting the freedom of speech. So in this particular context, the importance of sedition has been enhanced. Revising Indian Penal Code, need for reform in criminal justice system, identification of rights of victims of crime, remolding old offences, new offences like those suggested by Malimat Committee, related information recommendations by Malimat Committee, inquestial system. So then what recommendations given by inquestial system, right against self-incrimination, draft model tenancy act. Supreme Court recalls verdict diluting SC/ST atrocities law. International relations substance across the Arabian Sea, Israel and Iran, Iran and India, way forward. Sex ratio improves in country, birth and death rates dip. So this I will be doing tomorrow. So mainly with respect to international relations, Arabian Sea. So there are some issues. So usually we call substance for drugs, and there are some issues across the Arabian Sea, mainly with Israel, Iran, and so there is also threat in Arabian Sea about the drugs flow from Arabian Sea. It's too much, is very high, and that is also one of the issue with respect to Arabian Sea. Okay. So the next class I will be discussing about sex ratio improves in country, birth and death rates dip. So this will be the class next. Okay. Thank you everyone. Thank you Chandra, Anshu Verma, everyone. Thank you. We'll meet in the next special class of Unacademy and YouTube classes of Unacademy. Okay. Where I will be discussing the current affairs of November and slowly I will be entering into the first week of December. Thank you.